Hello and welcome to a Keep Dancing podcast special. As a bit of a treat, we're having a warm-up episode for the final, and I've got Dave Thorp from the Strictly Spoiler on the line to talk all about it. Hi, Dave.
Hello. Yes, I run the Strictly Spoiler website, which, as I'm sure you're aware, the worst kept secret in Strictly is that the results show on a Sunday isn't live. It's pre-recorded shortly after the Saturday night show. Those results then leak out and get posted to all over the internet, actually, not just my website. There's many other places that post the results out there for those that want to learn the results before the results show on the Sunday.
So it's a very useful service, especially if you have to write a script for a podcast that's recording immediately after the results show. But how did you personally get involved with this?
In all honesty, it was something I kind of accidentally fell into. Initially, I was sending the spoiler on Twitter to people that I was talking to about Strictly with on a Saturday, and I would mention on Twitter that I'd learned the results. If anyone wanted me to tell them, let me know, and I'd send them a direct message. Eventually, it then hit the point where I was sending quite a lot of messages, and it became easier to post it to a personal blog that I was running at the time. Then, about 2 years after I'd been doing it for 2 years, and in those 2 years, I get a few hundred page views, nothing to shout home about. In 2014, I gained search ranking for keywords relating to the spoiler, and all of a sudden it exploded into thousands of page views. This series, it's been hundreds of thousands every weekend. It's been quite crazy, actually, the last few years.
And what did that kind of traffic explosion do to your wee personal blog?
It melted it, to be perfectly honest. I've had to move web hosts quite a number of times over the last 4 or 5 years, just to progressively more powerful sites, just because of the sheer numbers of people, A, coming on the site, and B, trying to access the site at the exact same time.
The old bandwidth conundrum. And
yes.
That's not the only trouble you've ended up in. You've famously been asked to leave Facebook by the BBC in a mysterious sequence of events.
Yes, this was in 2015. I'd opened up a Facebook page for the spoiler to promote links to the website for people on Facebook. About halfway through the 2015 series, I get a message off Facebook saying they closed down my page due to a complaint that it infringed on the BBC's trademarks. I then had a brief email discussion with the BBC explaining why it didn't infringe their trademarks. They eventually reinstated the page, sent me about 2 paragraphs talking about trademark, and then a much longer talking about what the actual site was doing, posting the results before broadcast.
But the Strictly Spoiler has ended up with its own sort of community and honour code. Was it like being at the centre of that?
A community, certainly it's quite challenging actually running the community, certainly because it's just me operating this website and the associated Facebook and Twitter feeds. So yeah, that's a unique challenge. As well as my own community, we're kind of part of a much larger spoiler community. There's groups on Facebook that I work with. There's a group on a discussion forum that actually the spoiler originated even before I started doing it. I work quite closely with them as well. But yeah, with this series more than ever, we've all had each other's backs, trying to find moles each week, and it's been quite an interesting experience. This series more so.
There was this series that didn't ever really come in. It took until 5 a.m. for it to come in or something.
Oh yes, that was about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I think the weekend after Blackpool, I believe it was. Yes, not sure what happened there. None of the sources have moles. believe the recording of the show went on a bit later than usual as well, because they had to pre-record some parts of the Christmas special from what I was told. And yeah, we got unconfirmed spoilers coming in at about 11:30 midnight. And yeah, nothing confirmed until the early hours of the morning, as you say. That was quite a crazy weekend for my website, because that weekend, because of the lateness of the spoiler and people refreshing the site or having to check back for when the spoiler was confirmed, it actually received 675,000 page views over that weekend, which is about double what it would normally receive.
Blimey. And there's no big financial backer behind all of this work that you do. It's all
it's all supported partially by adverts that run on the website, and also certainly this last year or so, there's been a donate button on the website for visitors to the website. They can click through to that and send me a few pounds to go towards the web hosting costs, which have been quite expensive this year. It's probably going to cost me about £1,000 just to operate the website and host it before the end of the series.
That is sort of part of a growing movement through people who do useful and creative things and provide services on the internet to actually be able to get the sort of small amounts of money, like people who have podcasts and do Patreons.
Yes, that's right. People on YouTube as well also use things like Patreon as well. I'm sure Strictly contestant Joe Suggs more than familiar with all this as well.
Oh, isn't he just monetized ads alone and merch?
I haven't actually viewed his channel, so I'm not 100% certain, but I certainly have monetized ads on his YouTube.
Yeah. What's it been like having that other part of the internet join you this year? Because, we haven't really had anybody with a rabid online fan base since, I guess, Jay? Have you?
I haven't. I've tried adding some keywords into my website to try and encourage them to come along. So every single spoiler post this series has had "Is Joe Suggs still in Strictly" as one of the tags on it to try and bring some of them across. But no, I don't think I've been having Joe's fans come to the site in any kind of numbers. I mean, I've not fully checked the demographics for this series, but certainly in previous series, visitors to my website mainly tend to be females over the age of 45.
Like in key with the main Strictly demographic.
Yes, yeah. Absolutely.
Enough nerding out. How have you found this series of Strictly?
I've quite enjoyed it. The one thing I've found lacking for me is I quite enjoy Strictly when we have a obvious comedy contestant. So the likes of Ed Balls, Russell Grant, and Widdicombe. So this series seems to be lacking that. And the only other thing has been lacking as well, we haven't really had any surprise dance-offs as such. I mean, the biggest one you could probably say is Ashley being in the dance-off the first time. Obviously, the next two times weren't too as much of a surprise. But
yeah, well, I mean, when we are analysing the show and the cast, we always are looking out for somebody we call the Destroyer. And that's somebody who's got a lot of obvious dance skill, but will have a really weak voting demographic. And
there's always one or two of them each series.
Yeah, we'd had our eye on Ashley for potentially being a weak public vote since the start. But yeah, there's not really been anything where we've gone, what?
Not as far as the results have gone, no. It's all been fairly much as expected.
Yeah. In terms of not having a comedy contestant this year, though, do you think we maybe lost that when Sean Walsh let himself down?
I think if he got on a bit further, he probably would have been set up to be the comedy contestant. But yes, obviously he had his indiscretion, shall we say.
Just to put you in context as a Strictly fan, your favourite winner?
Oh, let's see. That's a tricky one. I really liked Cara Toynton the year she won.
Yeah.
So, I think I'd probably have to say out of all the winners, Cara Toynton.
A great dancer and a sort of a poignant love story as well.
Yes.
You can't really beat it, can you?
No.
And who?
No, everyone loves a good Strictly romance, unless we're already married, obviously.
If everybody's eligible, it's all fine.
Yes.
It's all part of the magic of the show. And
Yeah.
who in Strictly history do you think was most robbed?
I'm not sure about my own opinion on that. I know a lot of the people visiting my website felt Aston from JLS, who got eliminated early last year, was particularly robbed. So, I don't think I've got any strong opinion on that myself, but I will probably have to say what the people to my website are saying, and that will be Aston.
It was an absolute shocker, though. But
It was that one.
But when you take every element sort of in succession, you can see how it happened as an off dance choice on a difficult week.
Yes, he got slated by the judges quite a bit, didn't he? For some unusual choreography or something in the routine.
This is a sort of a constant bugbear when the celebrities are penalised for the pros' choreography.
Yes, I mean, the celebrities obviously don't get too much impact into the actual choreography. Usually that's down to the professional partner, or in the case of some of the more specialised routines, they get a third party in to arrange the choreography.
Yeah, do you think there's a case for sort of splitting out execution and creativity scores, or is the judging complicated enough already?
I think the judging's complicated enough already without adding. I think if I remember right, did Dancing on Ice try and do something like that one or two seasons
to sort of mirror how competitive ice dance is scored with the technical and the execution parts. Yeah. Oh, it would be weird, but this series, the judges have had much less impact than normal. We've had draws every week, which every draw you have tips the control much more towards the audience's televote.
It does, yes. Yes, that's because of the way the scoring system works. I've actually had quite a few people comment on my either on my Facebook or on my Twitter, like asking me why that's the case. When there's there's a draw on the top of the leaderboard, they both get 5 points, and then the next one down gets 4 still, rather than 3 as people would expect it to be. And of course, that relates to a fairly famous incident in, I think it was the 2008 series, with Tom Chambers in a situation where he was bottom of the leaderboard against 2 people that were tied, and there was absolutely no way for the public to save him.
Yeah, and that was felt to be so unfair that they ended up keeping him.
Yes, and he went on to win.
Yep. And that's how they got out of that. And like a lot of things in a long-running show, everything ends up being a sort of a fudge built on top of other fudges. Do you think eventually they will fudge something too far and break the format? Or do you think they know what they're doing?
I think there's a bit of a mix. I know certainly with visitors to my website, in some instances, the couple choices routines they've tried to add in this series, they've not gone down so well with people visiting my website who would prefer them to stick to the more traditional dance styles that are regularly used each week, rather than introducing what a lot of people are basically describing as a show dance that's midway through the series rather than in the final.
Yeah, and it has worked out that everybody in the top 7 managed to do a couple's choice and everybody in the bottom 8 didn't. So it sort of gives you a bit of an insight into, I guess, how the producers dish the dancers out with respect to who's left per week.
Yes, I mean, I'm sure they would have made it so that even by the point of the semi-final, everyone would have done a couple's choice that was left. But yes, as you say, The top 7 did, and the bottom 8 didn't get to do that one. Which, as it's basically a show dance, it can be quite a memorable routine, and one that would encourage people to vote.
Yeah, although we've only had one couple's choice in the dance-off, if I remember rightly, and that was Graham, wasn't it? Just consulting the spreadsheet. Yeah, it was just Graham who's been in there.
Yes, although he wasn't particularly polling. He's another one who wasn't polling that well with the public, because I think, was it 3 dance-offs, or 3 or 4 dance-offs he had before the judges voted him off?
He went out in his 4th dance-off.
Yes.
Bless him. So you've been polling throughout the series, obviously. So shall we look forward to the final? But first, was there anybody whose polling numbers gave you a surprise during the series? Have there just any polling anecdotes?
To be honest, no. I think it's more or less, the polls I've run have more or less gone as expected. One thing that has surprised a lot of people is, even before the results leak out, quite often throughout the course of the series, the 2 people that were sitting at the bottom of my polls were the one that then got announced to be in the dance-off, which was quite odd. People were swearing by the polls as being, a definitive of what the dance-off was going to be, even though it's not the case every week, but certainly a lot of weeks in this series, more so than any other. But again, that could be a symptom of the fact that all the dance-offs have been reasonably predictable. Yeah,
I wonder if the public vote is now syncing up a little bit more with the judges' scores, with obvious exceptions.
Well, yes, I mean, obviously Ashley's an exception there, isn't she?
Yeah.
So it's fairly clear that she's polling, if not bottom, then certainly towards the bottom of the public vote.
Which I am starting to feel really sad for her about that.
Yes, I do. I mean, she's certainly not been deserving a lot of the comments that she's been getting online. I mean, but there's always 1-2 contestants every year that people claim have had previous dance experience. Sometimes it's valid, sometimes, it's just because we've been in a girl band, that means we can dance.
We've had plenty of physical evidence to the contrary over the years in Strictly.
Yes.
So, our finalists. Ashley, we already know, stands less than a 1% chance of winning. It would be a highly unusual turnaround for her to win it from this position.
Yes, there would have to be a massive swing in public feeling towards her for her to have any chance of winning. On the poll that ran on my website after the semi-final, 7% of visitors to the website want Ashley and Pasha to win.
Oh, that's very sad. Wow, we really have had enough of experts. So going into my sort of second least likely to win, Faye and Gio.
Yes, I would agree with you there as well. Again, that's coming down to a slight perception of previous dance experience, because being in steps means she can do ballroom.
Yeah, absolutely. She learned a lot of complex dance maneuvers in steps.
Absolutely, yeah.
For us,
5, 6, 7, 8's full of them.
Line dance is its own skill, but ballroom it is not.
No.
For us,
as far as my poll goes, with Faye and Giovanni, 12% of visitors to the website wanted them to win after the semi-final.
For us, the big problem with Faye and Giovanni is that we kept forgetting about them. So especially in the early stages when we're podcasting and going through the whole long list of dancers, even with a written out running order, sometimes I would skip over Faye, which it never bodes well.
No.
But It's a shame because she's clearly a really nice woman,
Yes.
at a sort of an interesting stage in her career where she can either, go back to what she was doing with steps or branch out into something else. And she's a really good dancer.
Yes, she is. I mean, all four of the people in the final are really good in their own way, and all deserving of places in the final, I would say.
Yeah,
Although, again, this comes back to the predictability because people have had those fall down as the final four since about halfway through the series.
yeah, we did it after the first couple of weeks of YouTube views. It was, I think we were concerned that Faye might drop out through not being memorable, but her dance excellence has pushed her. The excellence has pushed her through, and not
Yes.
being as unpopular as Ashley. How sad. And then,
Well, yes, I mean, Faye must have picked up more votes than Ashley in order for the dance off to go as it did last week.
yeah, but then Faye does just have an existing voter base, and she's part of that category of strictly contestant that almost mirrors that sort of older women demographic. And though the older women demographic do like to vote for somebody that they can see themselves in.
I think she'll pick up some votes in the final. Probably not enough to win it, but could change.
Yeah, she's certainly going to give us.
I mean, two years ago, like Ore in the final was a distant outsider, and he managed to win. So
That's true. So
yes, I actually had a cheeky £5 free bet on Ore, so yeah, I did well off that.
oh, very nice. I think we pegged Ore for something special when he started looking down the camera. And sort of making eye contact with the viewers at home. That's something that all of the viewers should watch out for on Saturday. Who's actually looking down the camera at the people at home?
Yes,
Then I'm sort of controversially going to go maybe onto Stacey and Kevin next, just because Kevin's position is traditionally as the bridesmaid.
Yes, yes, that's something I actually thought myself when I was writing up a piece on the website. I'd do a preview of all the finalists as well, and yes, when I was writing up my piece about Stacey and Kevin, yes, it's always the case that Kevin makes it to the final, apart from last year, of course, and that always runner-up.
So he's clearly one of the most popular pros.
Yes.
As you find out if you tweet anything vaguely negative about him. But he's yet to manage to parlay this popularity and sort of alignment with the Strictly brand into a win. Why do you think that might be?
I don't know. I mean, certainly one or two of his partners, again, fall into the previous dance experience category, like Frankie Bridge that he partnered with a few years ago. So I mean, she was, because being in the Saturdays again, same as ballroom.
Yep.
So I think, certainly in that case, I don't think he had much chance of winning that final, much like Ashley won't, and possibly to a lesser extent Faye this year. In the case of the others, I'm not so sure because, Louise Redknapp, but he had a couple of years ago. Yeah, she's bagged with the same thing because she was in Eternal, of course, in the 1990s, so that's same as Ballroom again.
Exactly the same.
But certainly in the case of the other two, Kelly and... oh, God, it's on the tip of my
Susanna.
tongue. That's the one.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm not sure why he didn't manage to cross the finish line in those cases.
I feel like
because they were both very much journey contestants.
Yeah.
They didn't start off with previous dance experience. They had the whole Strictly journey, made it to the final, did some good routines in the final, but yeah, he was just pipped at the post. And will it happen again this year? with who you're about to move on to, I would probably say yes.
I think he lost out with Kelly because of the presence of Jay, and
oh yes, that's true. That was the year Jay won, and yes, Jay. The polls I run on my website, Jay topped pretty much every single one since week 3. That series, if I remember right. So yes, he had a massive following, and yeah.
I didn't even think the Wanted were that much of a big deal, but apparently.
I think for some reason the viewers just seem to really resonate with him. And again, he had a bit of a journey. Didn't start off too good, and then obviously got better. Certainly by was it his Jive that was his standout dance, if I remember right?
Yes, the Pulp Fiction
got everyone
Jive.
To take notice.
Yeah. I felt like that was a really weird feeling final because Jay's dancers sort of delivered, I guess, but everybody else's dancers really delivered, and the judges were, really ramping them and really backing them. And sort of
Jay just had too much public vote for that to be overturned.
Yeah. Going on to Wee Joe, who's just debuted his red hair on Strictly It Takes Two.
Yes, I didn't see the show, but I've seen some people post screenshots of it on Facebook and Twitter. So, yes.
He looks smashing. It takes years off of him.
I might have to try it myself then.
I think you have to have a Diane Boswell to stand next to.
Well, yes, that would probably help.
But yeah, he is, I would say, 2 orders of magnitude more famous than Jay from The Wanted, but not famous in the same way that the Strictly main demographic expect people to be famous.
Yes, I would agree with you there. Certainly when he was announced, and I post all the contestants' announcements to the website as well, there were lots of comments of who, what, he does YouTube, how does that make him famous? I'm fortunate, but I'm just about in a generation that can actually recognise emerging media such as YouTube as being something that makes celebrities these days.
Yeah, and as a one-man media empire, I feel like he's brought something a bit different to Strictly this year. Have you been watching his reaction blogs where he goes over his rehearsal footage with Diane?
I haven't, no.
They are surprisingly interesting and in-depth, and done with that sort of YouTuber sensibility where they don't really dwell on anything for that long, and they sort of cut straight to the real meat of what they're saying. And, it's like having them in your kitchen, chatting with you about how their dance went.
Yes.
And that's why he's so famous.
Yes, it's certainly a big name with the younger generation now. The question for me is, will they, A, watch the final, and B, vote for him? I mean, if they do vote for him, then he's going to be unstoppable.
Yeah, because the BBC have never really released the Strictly voting numbers, we don't even have an idea if people who haven't voted for the eliminations throughout the series come in and vote on the final. We don't really know what the sort of casual to serious ratio is in voters in the final. But if it's anything like the way that Joe's voters have been operating during the series, there is a lot of power voting going on.
Yes, certainly as far as online goes, I believe his all of his dances are usually the most viewed ones on YouTube.
Usually by an order of magnitude. So he's getting 300,000 views while everybody else is getting a sort of maximum of 40,000.
Yeah. Which again just shows how big he is. Again, if his fans all vote for him, he's won. Simple as.
Yeah, I mean, 8 million followers on YouTube. that is the Strictly viewing audience.
It is, more or less, yes.
More or less. I mean, his are sort of spread over the world a bit more, and some of them might need
yes,
VPNs
I mean, that's
to
a
vote.
point that people, I've made this point about Joe having so many followers before, and a few people have come back to me saying that, they're not all based in the UK, so won't all be eligible to vote in the final, although there are ways around that if you're so much inclined.
And I think that's the thing. Fangirls are inclined.
Yes.
I've been there myself. I've VPN'd to get to what it was that I wanted, and once somebody wants to do something with fanish intensity, it's going to get done.
They will do it.
So
yeah. I mean, coming back to my poll after the semi-final, 30% of people want Joe and Diane to win. 48 Stacey and Kevin, but again, as we said right at the start, towards the start, my site's audience demographic is mostly female over the age of 45, which aren't Joe's audience, of course.
No. And yeah, a lot of where I've been seeing stuff is sort of Joe's native territory on YouTube and on Twitter and on Instagram, where you would expect to see a major Joe following. So this weekend there won't be any Strictly spoiler action, but you'll be posting lots of interesting articles in the lead up. And
yes, that's right. I'm currently midway through a series previewing the finalists and also looking at their journey so far. So, like best dances, worst dances, average scores, how many times they've been in the dance off, all the boring stat stuff, and odds with the bookies as well. As far as actually on the final, I will be tweeting along and Facebooking along as I normally do, and there will be polls going out on the website during the final, which quite a few people voted in during the final last series, so hopefully people will come to the site and vote as the final goes on, and we can get some idea of how the public vote is going during the final.
Marvellous. Is there a particular dance from this series that you're looking forward to maybe being reprised on Saturday?
For me, the standout dance for me was Ashley's Contemporary. That just blew me away with the emotion of that piece. So although whether or not they'll be allowed to do a couple's choice as their favourite dance, I don't know, because again, we're coming into the question of it being kind of show dancey, and will they let people do two show dances in the final? A lot of people commenting on my Twitter have said that maybe they won't let people do the couple's choice as the couple's favourite routine, which obviously haven't been revealed yet.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we'd want maybe two couples choices, have Faye and Gio's couples choice in, but I'm not bothered about seeing Joe's couples choice ever again.
Yeah, yes, that was something different, wasn't it?
Yes, it's that kind of routine that makes me feel like it might not be back in the same format next year. Like maybe have contemporary in as a specialist genre of its own, and maybe have theatre jazz back on its own, or maybe smush them together to call them contemporary jazz. But don't let them do the street dance again.
Certainly not with basketballs or big giant inflatable basketballs.
No. Okay, so we'll wrap up there. We'll thank you for your sterling work during another fabulous series of Strictly, and hope you enjoy the final.
I will try to, but obviously I'll be working during it, so
yes,
I don't actually get to enjoy the show quite as much these days.
We've got to keep busy down the content mines.
Yes.
So thanks for being with us on the Keep Dancing podcast. Bye, Dave.
No problem.
And good night from me, Ellie. Keep dancing.